Welcome to Real Mission Stories. Today's story isn't just about courage. It's about quiet dignity, unshakable strength, and one woman's fight to make even the highest ranks of command listen. It started on a remote desert training ground where the sun baked the sand until it shimmered like molten glass. Dust rose with every boot step, clinging to sweat-soaked uniforms, turning everyone the same shade of tired brown. The air smelled of metal, oil, and exhaustion. Recruits moved in perfect lines, repeating the same drills until their muscles trembled. Among them was Lieutenant Sarah Kaine. She wasn't the loudest voice in the formation, nor the quickest to shout commands, but there was something in the way she carried herself, calm, centered, unshaken, that made even the toughest instructors pause for a moment. When they looked at her, Sarah came from a small town most people would never find on a map. Her father, a gentleman with tired eyes, worked long nights as the town's only doctor. Her mother, a teacher, filled their home with books and laughter. They had both dreamed of a quiet life for their daughter. Her father hoped she'd take over his clinic one day. Her mother imagined her standing in front of a blackboard, not on a battlefield. But Sarah's heart was drawn somewhere else. The sound of marching boots, the crack of rifles, and the purpose that came from standing for something bigger than herself. Her decision to enlist didn't bring pride to everyone. Friends whispered behind her back. Some said she'd never make it through training. Others thought she joined to prove a point. But Sarah didn't join for approval. She joined because she believed service wasn't just about fighting, it was about protecting. It's about standing for those who couldn't stand alone. The barracks were a test of more than muscle. They tested patience, resilience, and the will to keep going when everything inside you screamed to stop. Sarah learned quickly that the hardest battles weren't fought with rifles, but with silence withstanding the jokes, the mockery, the sidelong glances. Some of the men laughed when she stumbled. Others said she was only there because someone up high must have pulled strings. None of them knew that Sarah's only connection to power was her refusal to give up. Days bled into nights, and the training never eased. But Sarah's silence was her shield. She didn't fight back with words or anger. She simply endured quietly, steadily knowing that sooner or later, her actions would speak louder than any insult. Then one night, the line was crossed. A nighttime drill was meant to simulate a capture scenario, a test of how soldiers would resist interrogation under pressure. It was meant to push limits but not break them. What happened next wasn't training. It was cruelty. During the exercise, a group of recruits cornered her. Their taunts came sharp and cruel, words soaked with arrogance. They wanted to see her crack, but Sarah didn't. Her calmness only made them angrier. Then one of them snapped. His boot swung hard, connecting with her head. The impact dropped her to the ground. Dust filled her mouth, and the metallic taste of blood spread across her tongue. The world tilted. Her vision blurred. For a moment, everything faded to a hum of ringing ears and spinning sky. But Sarah refused to stay down. Through the haze of pain, she pushed her palms into the dirt, forcing herself upright. Her legs trembled, blood dripped down her cheek, but her eyes never lowered. She wiped the blood away, straightened her posture, and walked out without saying a word. The barracks fell into stunned silence. Not one of them followed her. Not one dared to. Sarah walked across the camp alone, the night wind carrying the echo of her boots. The soldiers who caught sight of her saw her bruised face and blood-stained collar, and they stepped aside. She walked straight to the command tent. Minutes later, headlights appeared on the horizon. 3 black SUVs tore through the gate, engines roaring. When the doors opened, 3 generals stepped out. Their sudden arrival froze the entire camp. Generals didn't show up unannounced in the middle of the night, not unless something serious had happened. Whispers broke out across the compound. Who called them? What happened? Why are they here? The truth spread quickly. Sarah wasn't just another recruit. One of those generals had known her parents long ago, had made a promise at her father's funeral that if she ever chose the uniform, he would protect her like his own. But protection wasn't what Sarah had asked for. She didn't demand revenge. She asked for accountability. The generals marched into the barracks. Soldiers stood stiff, fear crawling across their faces. The general's voice cut through the air like a blade. "Who laid hands on her?" No one answered. Silence swallowed the room. Sarah stood behind them, bruised but unbowed. Her voice was quiet, but it carried further than any shout. "It wasn't just one man," she said. "It's the culture you've allowed here. Fix it or more of us will fall." Those words hit harder than any accusation. She wasn't begging for punishment. She was demanding change. That night, the base went dark. Orders flew. The unit was disbanded. Investigations began. Careers that had once seemed untouchable ended before sunrise. The message was clear. The era of silence was over. Sarah was transferred to a new command post weeks later. The whispers followed. Some called her a troublemaker, others a hero. But Sarah didn't care what they called her. She cared about how they treated each other. She trained harder than ever, pushing her body beyond exhaustion, carrying herself with unbreakable pride. She refused to let bitterness take root. Months later, during a formal ceremony under the blinding lights of the parade ground, Sarah's courage was finally recognized. She stood tall as the general who once promised her father pinned a medal to her chest. The crowd erupted in applause, but Sarah didn't smile for herself. After the ceremony, she walked quietly to the memorial wall, ran her fingers over the engraved names of fallen soldiers, and placed the medal beneath them. When a young private asked why she gave away her award, she answered softly, "Because this was never about me. It's about everyone who wears this uniform with honor. Respect, dignity, courage, that's what I fight for." Sarah rose through the ranks, earning the respect of every soldier under her command. She built her units differently in trust, not fear. She demanded excellence, but she never tolerated humiliation. Her troops followed her not because they had to, but because they wanted to. She taught them that leadership isn't about shouting louder than others. It's about listening when no one else will. Her story spread quietly from one base to another. Recruits who never met her whispered her name with respect. She had become a legend not because of a medal, but because of what she stood for. And in every campfire story, in every whispered tale told by new recruits, the lesson remained the same. Strength isn't in the punch you throw. It's in the stand you take when the world tries to break you. Sarah Kaine never sought glory. She didn't crave attention. But history remembered her as the soldier who changed the system not through violence, but through unwavering conviction. Sometimes courage doesn't roar. Sometimes it walks into a command tent, bloodied but unbroken, and forces the world to listen. If this story moved you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Here on Real Mission Stories, we honor the quiet warriors whose courage rewrites history, one act of dignity at a time.